My dad smashed my son's $2,000 birthday MacBook. I took revenge publicly. My father lifted that $2,000 MacBook with both hands high above his head, then slammed it down on the hardwood floor with every ounce of strength in his body. The crack echoed through my living room like a gunshot. The screen spider-webbed instantly. Keys from the keyboard scattered across the floor like shrapnel. The MacBook I'd saved for months to buy as a birthday gift for my son had been destroyed by my own father just like that. After that savage act, my dad shouted at me, his face purple with rage. "This is what happens when you raise a selfish brat." Why did he do this? What could possibly justify such cruelty? Stay with me, because this story will show you how far blind favoritism can push people to commit unthinkable acts. But before we dive into the nightmare that was my son's 16th birthday, let me introduce myself. I'm Meredith, 43 years old, and I'm a single mother. My husband died 3 years ago in a construction accident that left our world shattered. Since then, I've poured everything I have into raising our son, Cameron. I've tried to be both mother and father, provider and protector, because I know that losing a parent at 13 years old is a wound that never fully heals. I work as a dental hygienist at a practice in downtown Portland, Oregon. The pay is decent, but raising a teenager alone in this economy isn't easy. Every dollar counts. That's why when I decided to buy Cameron a MacBook Pro for his 16th birthday, it meant sacrificing other things, skipping my own birthday dinner, wearing the same winter coat for another year, eating ramen for lunch most days at work. But Cameron deserved it. My son is brilliant with computers. He taught himself basic coding at 12, built his first website at 13, and now dreams of studying computer science at Oregon State University. His old laptop, a budget model I'd bought him 4 years ago, was dying a slow death, taking 10 minutes to boot up, freezing during his programming projects, barely able to run the software he needed for his advanced placement computer science class. So I saved. For 6 months, I put aside every extra dollar. I picked up extra shifts at the dental office. I sold some of my late husband's tools that I'd been keeping in the garage. Slowly, painfully, I watched the number in my savings account climb until finally, I had enough. The MacBook Pro I chose was perfect 16-inch screen, powerful processor, enough memory and storage to handle any programming project Cameron could dream up. I imagined his face when he opened it, imagined him throwing his arms around me, imagined the tears of joy in his eyes. I wrapped it carefully in silver paper with blue ribbons, Cameron's favorite colors. I hid it in my bedroom closet, taking it out sometimes just to look at it, to feel the weight of that beautifully wrapped box and imagine the happiness it would bring. I thought I was planning the perfect birthday surprise. I had no idea I was setting the stage for the worst night of our lives. Cameron's 16th birthday fell on a Saturday in late September. The weather was perfect, that golden Oregon autumn, where the leaves are just starting to turn and there's a crispness in the air that makes everything feel full of possibility. I'd spent the morning decorating our small house in southeast Portland with streamers and balloons, setting up a snack table, and baking Cameron's favorite chocolate cake from scratch. By 6 o'clock, our modest living room was packed with 15 guests. My parents drove up from Eugene, Dad with his perpetual scowl, Mom with her nervous habit of smoothing down her cardigan. My older brother Warren came with his wife Natalie and their son Kelvin, who was also 16. Then there were Cameron's 3 closest friends from his computer science club, and a handful of our neighbors who'd watched Cameron grow up. The party started beautifully. Everyone sang happy birthday while Cameron stood behind his cake, his face glowing in the candlelight. At 16, he still had that gangly teenage awkwardness, all elbows and knees, but his smile was pure sunshine. My heart swelled watching him. This was what I'd worked so hard for. This moment of pure, uncomplicated joy. "Make a wish, honey," I called out, my phone ready to capture the moment. Cameron closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and blew out all 16 candles in one go. Everyone cheered. For a moment, everything was perfect. We ate cake, people laughed. Cameron's friends showed him memes on their phones. The neighbors shared embarrassing stories about Cameron from when he was little. Even my father seemed almost pleasant, which should have been my first warning sign. Dad was never pleasant without a reason. Around 7:30, we moved to the present opening portion of the evening. Cameron sat on the floor, surrounded by wrapped gifts. One by one, he opened them: a gift card to Powell's Books from the neighbors, a new gaming headset from his friends, a toolkit from Warren and Natalie, a $50 bill tucked into a card from my parents. "Thank you, everyone," Cameron said after each gift, his manners impeccable despite his excitement. "This is all so awesome." But I could see him glancing around, looking for one more package, looking for my gift. I deliberately saved mine for last. I wanted it to be the grand finale, the moment that would make this birthday unforgettable. I had no idea how right I was about the unforgettable part. "Mom?" Cameron finally asked, his voice tentative. Did you get me something?" I smiled mysteriously. "Of course I did, sweetheart. Just wait right here." I walked to my bedroom, my heart pounding with excitement. This was it, the moment I'd been dreaming about for 6 months. I lifted the silver-wrapped package from my closet, feeling its reassuring weight in my hands. As I carried it back to the living room, I could hear the guests whispering, "That box looks expensive." One of the neighbors murmured. "Meredith's been working a lot of extra shifts," another replied. "She must have saved up for something special." I stepped back into the living room, and every eye turned to me. I had no idea that in less than 10 minutes, that beautiful silver package would be in pieces on my floor. The whispers grew louder as I walked across the room toward Cameron. I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on the silver package in my hands. Cameron's face lit up like I'd never seen before. "Mom, is that for me?" His voice cracked slightly, the way teenage boys' voices do when they're caught between childhood and adulthood. "Open it and find out," I said, kneeling down beside him to hand him the gift. Cameron took the package with reverent hands, running his fingers over the smooth paper. He started to carefully peel back one corner of the wrapping, trying not to tear it, a habit he'd picked up from his father, who always insisted on saving the pretty paper. "Come on, just rip it open," one of his friends called out, laughing. But Cameron shook his head, smiling. "No way. Mom spent too much time making this look nice." My heart melted. This boy, this wonderful, thoughtful boy, was everything I lived for. He'd just gotten one corner unstuck when Kelvin suddenly lunged forward from where he'd been sitting with Warren and Natalie. Before anyone could react, my nephew grabbed the package right out of Cameron's hands. "Let me help you," Kelvin announced, his voice loud and aggressive. "You're taking forever." "Kelvin, wait," Cameron started, reaching for his gift. But Kelvin had already started tearing into the wrapping paper with rough, greedy hands. He ripped through the silver paper I'd so carefully folded, through the blue ribbons I'd tied with precision. Within seconds, the beautiful wrapping lay in shreds on the floor. "Kelvin, stop!" I shouted, jumping to my feet. But it was too late. Kelvin had already torn open the box. His eyes went wide when he saw the MacBook Pro inside the sleek space gray case, the Apple logo gleaming under the living room lights. "No way!" Kelvin yelled, pulling the laptop completely out of the box. He held it up above his head like a trophy. "This is sick," I called dibs. The room went completely silent. Everyone stared in shock except for my family. My father actually started laughing, a deep, pleased sound that made my blood run cold. "That's my boy," Dad called out, grinning at Kelvin. "Quick fingers, just like his old man," my mother chimed in, her voice dripping with that saccharine tone she used when she was spoiling Kelvin. "Oh, you're so clever, sweetheart. What a prize you've won." Warren and Natalie were beaming with pride, as if their son had just accomplished something commendable instead of committing an act of outright theft. I turned to look at Cameron. My son sat frozen on the floor, surrounded by torn silver paper and blue ribbons. His face had gone completely white. I watched as his eyes filled with tears, watched as his bottom lip started to tremble. "Kelvin," I said, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "That's Cameron's birthday present. Give it back, right now." Kelvin clutched the MacBook tighter to his chest and backed toward his parents. "Finders keepers," he said with a smirk. And that's when I knew this wasn't just a spontaneous act. This had been planned. My hands were shaking as I walked toward Kelvin, but my voice came out steady and cold. "Kelvin, I'm going to count to 3. Give Cameron his laptop back, or I'm taking it from you." "Warren?" I snapped, turning to my brother. Control your son. Warren held up his hands in a placating gesture that made me want to scream. Come on, Mur. Don't be so dramatic. It's just a computer. Buy Cameron something else. Kelvin opened it first, let him have this one. Are you out of your mind? I could feel my voice rising. That laptop cost me $2,000. I've been saving for 6 months. It's Cameron's birthday present. Natalie stepped forward, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Meredith, honey, you're making a scene in front of the children. Can't you just share? Kelvin and Cameron are family after all. Share? I repeated, my voice incredulous. It's not a bag of chips, Natalie. It's a $2,000 laptop that I bought specifically for my son's birthday. I turned to my parents, desperate for them to see reason. Mom, Dad, please, tell Kelvin to give Cameron his present back. But my father crossed his arms over his chest, his expression darkening. Meredith, don't be selfish. Kelvin got to the present first. That's how it works. That's not how anything works, I shouted. You can't just steal someone else's birthday present. By now, Cameron's friends were on their feet, closing ranks around my son. One of them, a tall kid named Austin, spoke up. This is messed up, Mrs. Patterson. That's Cameron's laptop. The neighbors were exchanging uncomfortable glances. Mr. Rodriguez, who lived 2 doors down, cleared his throat. I have to agree. This is highly inappropriate. The gift was clearly intended for the birthday boy. Mrs. Rochelle from across the street nodded vigorously. I've never seen anything like this in my life. You can't just let a child steal another child's birthday present and then defend it. But my family wasn't backing down. Dad stepped forward, his face reddening. Meredith, I'll buy the damn laptop from you. How much do you want? I actually laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You'll buy it? Are you serious right now? I'll give you $2,000, Dad continued, pulling out his wallet. Right now. Cash. Then Kelvin can keep the laptop, and you can buy Cameron something else. The sheer audacity of it took my breath away. It's Cameron's 16th birthday, Dad. Today. Right now. And you want to take away his present and give it to Kelvin? Don't be so precious about it, Mom interjected. Warren and Natalie can't afford gifts like this. You should be happy to help your nephew. Something inside me snapped. All the years of watching my parents favor Warren, of seeing Kelvin get everything while Cameron got scraps, of being told to be the bigger person, to share, to sacrifice, it all came crashing down. You know what? I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You want to buy the laptop? Fine. $4,000. Warren's head snapped up. What? That's double. 4,000. I repeated. 2,000 for Kelvin's laptop, 2,000 for Cameron's. Because if you're buying one for Kelvin, you're damn well buying one for Cameron too. That's only fair, right? Since we're family? The room went dead silent. And that's when my father made his move. My father's face turned a deep shade of purple I'd only seen a few times in my life, usually right before he did something he'd regret. But he never seemed to regret anything when it came to Warren and Kelvin. $4,000? He hissed through clenched teeth. You're extorting your own father? I'm protecting my son, I shot back. Something you should have been doing as his grandfather. When's the last time you treated Cameron and Kelvin equally, Dad? When's the last time you gave them the same amount for their birthdays? The same attention? The same love? Mom's hand flew to her chest in theatrical shock. Meredith Ann Patterson, how dare you speak to your father that way? How dare I? My voice was rising again, but I couldn't stop it. How dare you, Mom? When Jack died, did you help with Cameron? Did you check in on how your grandson was handling losing his father? No! But when Warren needed money for Kelvin's baseball equipment, you wrote a check for $500 within an hour. Warren jumped in, his face flushed. That's not fair. Fair? I whirled on him. You want to talk about fair? Last Christmas, Kelvin got a PlayStation 5 from Mom and Dad. Cameron got a $20 gift card to Target. Kelvin's birthday party last year? Mom and Dad paid for him and 10 friends to go to Oaks Amusement Park. Cameron's 15th birthday? They gave him a card with $50 and said they were sorry they couldn't stay long because they had to drive back to Eugene. The neighbors were nodding now, their expressions grim. Cameron's friends had their phones out. I realized later they were recording the whole thing. My father's jaw worked back and forth, a sure sign he was about to explode. You've always been ungrateful, Meredith. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head, and I've thanked you for that, I interrupted. But Cameron is your grandson too. He deserves the same love and attention you shower on Kelvin. He lost his father, Dad. Your grandson is growing up without a father, and you treat him like he's invisible. Enough! My father roared. The room shook with the force of his voice. I've heard enough of this. He turned on his heel and marched toward Kelvin, who was still clutching the MacBook like it was a life preserver. For one hopeful moment, I thought Dad was going to take it from Kelvin and give it back to Cameron. I was so wrong. My father grabbed the MacBook from Kelvin's hands not gently, but with purpose. Kelvin started to protest, but Dad held up one hand to silence him. Everyone in the room seemed to hold their breath, watching, waiting. Dad turned to face me, the MacBook in his hands. His eyes were cold, harder than I'd ever seen them. You want to know what I think about your $4,000? He asked quietly. Before I could answer, before anyone could move, my father raised that MacBook high above his head with both hands, and then he slammed it down onto the hardwood floor with every ounce of strength in his 70-year-old body. The sound was deafening. Metal and glass meeting wood with devastating force. The MacBook hit the floor and exploded. The screen shattered into a spider web of cracks. The aluminum case bent at an unnatural angle. Keys from the keyboard scattered across the hardwood like plastic confetti. The entire room seemed to freeze, everyone staring at the destroyed laptop in horror. Except my father. He stood over the wreckage, breathing hard, his face still purple with rage. That's what I think of your extortion, he spat. And that's what you get for being selfish and teaching your son to be the same way. Cameron let out a sound I'll never forget, a choked sob that came from somewhere deep in his chest. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. His friends immediately surrounded him, trying to comfort him, shooting murderous looks at my father. Something broke inside me. Not broke, crystallized. Every ounce of doubt, every moment of weakness, every time I'd told myself that family was family and I should just keep the peace, all of it hardened into pure, cold fury. I walked toward my father slowly, deliberately. When I was inches from his face, I said in a voice I barely recognized as my own, "Get out of my house." "Meredith," my mother started. "Get out of my house." Each word was its own sentence. "All of you, right now." "You can't throw your own parents out," Mom gasped. "Watch me," I replied, pulling out my phone. "You have 2 minutes to leave before I call the police and have you arrested for destruction of property." The video from my doorbell camera is already uploaded to the cloud. I have 15 witnesses. So yes, I absolutely can throw you out, and if you don't leave right now, I'll make sure you face criminal charges. Mr. Rodriguez stepped forward. "I'll testify," he said firmly. "I saw the whole thing." "So will I," Mrs. Rochelle added. "That was assault on property, clear as day." Cameron's friend Austin held up his phone. "I got it all on video, Mrs. Patterson, from when Kelvin grabbed the present to when your dad smashed it." My father's expression shifted from rage to something else, uncertainty, maybe even fear. He was finally realizing he'd gone too far. "Let's go," he muttered to my mother and Warren's family. "We don't need to stay where we're not wanted." They filed toward the door, not a single apology among them. Kelvin had the audacity to look at me with a smirk as he passed. Warren wouldn't meet my eyes. Natalie clutched her purse dramatically, as if I might attack her. But as they reached the door, I suddenly remembered something. "Wait," I called out. My father turned, a triumphant look crossing his face. I walked past him and into the garage, where my father's Chevrolet Silverado sat, the truck I'd let him borrow 3 years ago when his old Ford finally died, the truck that was still registered in my name because it had been Jack's. I grabbed the keys from the hook by the garage door and came back inside. "I was wrong about something," I said calmly. "You're not leaving in my truck." I dangled the truck keys in front of my father's face. "This Silverado? The one you've been driving for 3 years? It's registered in my name. Jack bought it 6 months before he died. I let you borrow it because Mom said your Ford was on its last legs. But borrowed means temporary. I'm taking it back. Now. My father's face went from purple to white. You can't. I can and I am, I interrupted. You have two choices. You can walk to the TriMet bus stop on Hawthorne Boulevard, it's only 6 blocks. Or you can call Warren to come back and pick you up after he drops off Natalie and Kelvin. Your choice. It's almost 9 o'clock at night. My mother shrieked. Then I guess you'd better start walking, I replied coldly. The number 14 bus runs until midnight. Mr. Rodriguez started clapping slowly. Then Austin joined in. Then all of Cameron's friends, the neighbors, even Mrs. Rochelle, who was usually so quiet and polite, was applauding. Well done, dear, she called out. Make them walk. My father's face cycled through several shades of rage. But he knew he'd lost. He grabbed my mother's arm and stormed out of the house. Through the window, I watched them trudging down the sidewalk toward the bus stop, their figures growing smaller in the darkness. After everyone else left, after I'd thanked the neighbors and Cameron's friends for their support, after I'd swept up the pieces of the destroyed MacBook, I went to Cameron's room. He was lying on his bed, facing the wall. Honey, I said softly, sitting on the edge of his bed. I need to run an errand. I'll be back in an hour, okay? He didn't respond, but I heard him sniffle. I drove to the Apple store at Pioneer Place Mall. Yes, they were open until 10. I'd checked online. Yes, they had another MacBook Pro in stock. No, I didn't have the money in my checking account anymore. So I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I opened a new credit card. Right there in the store. The interest rate was highway robbery, but I didn't care. 20 minutes later, I walked out with a brand new MacBook Pro, this time in silver, and had them wrap it in blue paper. When I got home, Cameron was sitting in the living room, staring at nothing. Cameron, I said gently, close your eyes. Mom, I don't want... Please, trust me, close your eyes. He did, though his expression was miserable. I placed the wrapped MacBook in his lap. Okay, open them. Cameron opened his eyes and looked down at the blue-wrapped package. His eyes went wide. Mom, you didn't... Happy birthday, sweetheart, I said, my voice breaking. No one gets to ruin your birthday, not even them. Cameron tore into the wrapping, not carefully this time, but with desperate hope. When he saw the MacBook, he burst into tears. Real tears, not just the silent ones from before. He threw his arms around me and sobbed into my shoulder. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That night, after Cameron finally fell asleep with his new MacBook carefully placed on his desk, I sat at my own computer. I uploaded Austin's video to my Facebook page,